Assalamualaikum students, welcome back to another video. Today we will be solving Cambridge IGCSE Physics Paper 4 Variant 42 of February-March 2024. Also a quick reminder that all of the revenue generated from these videos will be sent to the aid of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. So please support us. Question 1. Figure 1.1 is a speed time graph for the first 5 minutes of a bus journey. Describe the motion between 0.9 minutes and 2.9 minutes. So we can see that from 0.9 till 2.9 we have constant speed. Since the speed is not changing, so we have constant speed. From 2.9 till 3.5, so from this point till this point, we can see that we have a constant decrease in speed. This is also called constant deceleration. So constant deceleration. From 3.5 till 4.5, this is this region. So here we can clearly see that the speed is 0, which means that the object is stationary. Another bus travels at a speed of 8.9 meters per second. The brakes apply a constant force and the bus stops in a distance of 23 meters. This bus has a mass of 1800 kilograms. Calculate the kinetic energy of the bus before the brakes are applied. So simply we'll use the formula for kinetic energy, which is half mv square. We are given the mass and the speed. Mass is 1800. Speed we have 8.9. So simply plug this in your calculator and the answer you will get will be 710,000 joules. Calculate the force applied to stop the bus. So we know in these cases the formula that we use is work done is equals to force into distance. So work done here will be the kinetic energy, because this is the energy of the bus right before it stops. So work done we have as the kinetic energy. Force we have to calculate. The distance that it stops in is 23 meters. So when you calculate this, your answer will come out to be approximately 31,000 newtons. Question 2. Define impulse. So we know impulse is the force multiplied by the time for which the force acts. So you can write it multiplied by time. Shows a rocket and its exhaust gases. The exhaust gases are emitted from the rocket with a velocity of 1400 meters per second and at a rate of 2800 kilograms per second. Show that the force exerted on the rocket by the exhaust gases is 3900 kilonewtons. State the equation that you use. So here we can use this equation, which relates momentum and force. So change in momentum over the change in time gives you the force. So therefore we can calculate change in momentum. We are given the mass and the speed. So mass is 2800 kilograms per second and speed is 1400 meters per second. Since we are taking per second, so time will be 1 and this will give you the force. So upon calculation, your answer will come out to be 3,920,000 newtons. This is your answer. Calculate the maximum mass that this force can lift from the ground. Ignore air resistance. So we have a force and we have to calculate the maximum mass that this particular force can lift from the ground. So when we are lifting any object from the ground, what are we acting against? We are acting against the gravity. So here we can use this formula. W is equals to mg. We have to calculate the mass, and here W will be the force that we have. Mass we have to calculate. The gravitational field strength 9.8. So basically, what mass can this particular force lift from the ground? So just put this in your calculator, and your answer will be approximately 4 into 10 to the power of 5 kilograms. Question 3. A car has a weight of 1300 newtons. The car is supported by 4 tires. The area of each tire in contact with the road is 0.016 meters square. Calculate the pressure on the road due to the weight of the car. So the formula for pressure is equals to force over area. In this case, force is the weight of the car and the area will be the combined area of all 4 tires. So force is 13,000 and area would be area of the 4 tires. So multiply by 4. So when you solve this, your answer will be 2 into 10 to the power 5 pascals. Explain in terms of particles why the air pressure in the tires increase when the car travels along the road. So when the car travels along the road, there is an increase in friction. So the increase in friction causes an increase in temperature as well, and we know that temperature and pressure are directly related. So when the temperature increases, the pressure increases because the particles inside the tire, they gain greater energy, more kinetic energy, and they collide with the walls of the tire with a greater speed and a greater frequency. So all in all, this increases the pressure. So you can write this in any way. Friction increases, which causes increase in temperature, particles gain A gas cylinder contains helium gas at a pressure of 2 into 10 to the power 6 pascals. A volume of 0.0226 meter cube of the compressed gas is released from the cylinder into balloons. Each balloon contains 0.015 meter cube of helium at atmospheric pressure. The temperature remains constant. Calculate the maximum number of balloons that can be filled. Okay, so first we'll have to find out the volume. So we can do this using the formula P1 V1. So P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. Basically we have to find P2. P1 we have and V volume is 0.026. We have to calculate the pressure. Sorry, we have to calculate the volume. The pressure we are given, which is equal to the atmospheric pressure. So your volume comes out to be 0.52. But we have to calculate the maximum number of balloons that can be filled. So if this is the total volume we have and each balloon contains 0.015, so the maximum number can be found out by dividing it, and this comes out to be 34. Question 4. Define specific heat capacity. So specific heat capacity is the thermal energy needed to raise the temperature of a unit mass by 1 Celsius. Required volume of 0.0024 meter cube of oil is heated in a pan for 7 minutes. The temperature of the oil increases from 20 Celsius to 180 Celsius. The density of the oil is 910. The specific heat capacity of the oil is 2000. Calculate the mass of oil in the pan. So we are given the density and the volume. We can use the formula density is equal to mass upon volume. Density is 910, mass we have to calculate, volume is 0.024. So just plug this in the calculator and mass comes out to be 2.2 kilograms. Calculate the energy required to increase the temperature of the oil. So the formula for energy is mc delta T, where m is the mass, c is the specific heat capacity, and delta T is the change in temperature. So we have all the information. Mass, the specific heat capacity is 2000, and the change in temperature is 160, because 20 to 180 is 160. So your answer comes out to be rounded off to 700,000 joules. Calculate the power required to supply the energy. So you know the formula is energy is equal to power into time. We know the energy is 700,000. Power we have to calculate, and time we have as 7 minutes. But be careful, you have to convert minutes into seconds. So 7 into 60, and the power comes out to be approximately 1700 watts. Question 5. Table 5.1 shows applications of regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. Complete the second column of the table with the region of the electromagnetic spectrum used for each application. So cancer treatment, they have given us gamma rays. Bluetooth data connection, we know, uses radio waves. Optical fibers use infrared. Security marking uses ultraviolet. Sterilizing food, gamma rays. And wireless internet uses microwaves. So this is something that you must memorize for your exams. State the approximate speed of radio waves in air. So we know that all of the waves of the electromagnetic spectrum travel at the speed of light in air, which is approximately this much. Figure 5.1 shows successive crests of a wave after a plane wave has passed through a gap. On figure 5.1, draw 3 successive crests before the wave reaches the gap. So they have shown us the diffracted waves. We have to draw the waves before they were diffracted. So we must be careful in drawing, and the wavelength should be approximately the same. It should be something like this. They should have similar or the same gap in between. On figure 5.2 shows a much wider gap. A plane wave of the same wavelength as in B part 1 is incident on the gap from the left side of the barrier. Draw 3 successive crests of the wave after the wave has passed through the gap. Okay, so we are using the same waves as in the previous part. Okay, so due to the increase in the gap, the diffraction will decrease. So the waves will be just slightly diffracted. So something like this. Question 6. Figure 6.1 shows a full-scale diagram of an object O and its image I produced by a converging lens. The lens and its position on the principal axis are not shown. On figure 6.1, draw a single ray to locate the position of the center of the converging lens. So we know that we draw 2 rays, one that passes through the center of the lens from the top of the object to the bottom of the image, and the other one passes through the top of the lens. So we'll draw the lens that passes through the center of the lens and to the bottom of the image. So it will be like this. Let me draw this a bit straighter. Yeah. So it means that at this point, here your converging lens exists. This is your converging lens. And draw a line to represent the position of the lens and label the line L. So this is L. Determine the focal length of the lens by drawing another ray. So we know that the other ray, it goes through the top of the lens. So it will go through this and then towards the image. And we know the focal length is the point where the ray passes through the principal axis. So this is your focal length F. And when you measure this length, it will come out to be somewhere around 2 centimeters. 2.1 to be exact. The object is moved 2 centimeters closer to the lens. State 2 changes to the characteristics of the image. So the object is moved closer to the lens. So the object is moved over here. So when the object is moved closer, we have to draw So we can see that the object will be formed on the same side as the image will be formed on the same side as the object. It will be formed somewhere over here. This will be your image. So they are asking to state two changes to the characteristics of the image. So before the image was inverted, but this time the image will be upright. And it will be virtual, because images formed on the same side of the object are virtual. Draw the circuit symbol for a potential divider. So we know that a potential divider looks something like this. Figure 7.1 shows a circuit. Calculate the value of V out when the value of R is 3 kilo ohms. So when R is 3 kilo ohms, so we know that resistance and the potential difference are directly proportional. So the ratio of the resistance would be the same as the ratio of the potential difference across it. So V out is basically the potential difference across R out. So the ratio of R out and R is 1:3. So the ratio of the potential difference across these two components will also be the same. So V out and V must also be, let's call it this V, this must also be 1:3. So if the total volt is 6, so if we divide it into this ratio 1:3, we will get 1.5 for V out and 4.5 for V. So the value of V out would be 1.5. The value of R is adjusted until the current in the circuit is 1.7 milliamperes. Calculate the charge that flows through the circuit in 300 seconds. So the formula for this is Q is equals to IT. I is the current, which is 1.7 × 10 to the power minus 3. T is your time, which is 300 seconds. So this comes out to be 0.51 coulombs. Figure 8.1 shows a wire carrying a large current. Figure 8.2 shows the square card viewed from above. On figure 8.2, draw three magnetic field lines that indicate the direction of the magnetic field and how its strength varies with distance from the wire. Okay, so here we'll use the right hand grip rule. The direction of your four fingers, that indicates the direction of the magnetic field, and your thumb indicates the direction of the current. So take your right hand and point your thumb downwards towards the ground or towards the page, and you will see that the rest of your four fingers, they will be in such a direction, in a clockwise direction around. Clockwise direction. We also have to state the direction of the magnetic field and how its strength varies with distance from the wire. So as the distance increases, the magnetic field strength decreases. So we'll have to make since the field strength decreases with distance, so they'll have to be further apart from the first circle. And the third one will be most further apart. So the increasing distance between these lines indicate that the field strength is decreasing. The current in the wire increases and the direction of the current is reversed State how these changes affect the magnetic field. So the increase in current causes the magnetic field strength to increase, and the reversal of the direction causes the direction of the field strength to reverse. So strength increases, the direction reverses. Electricity is transmitted at high voltage. Explain why a high voltage increases the efficiency of transmission even with thinner wires. Okay, so we know that power loss is given by I square R, and we also have the formula VI. So as we increase the voltage, which the question suggests, there will be an increase in the current to have the same power, and because of that there is higher resistance. Because the thinner wires have smaller cross sectional area, so there is a higher resistance, and hence the efficiency of transmission is increased. So you can write this, you can state the formula of power loss Question 9. An experiment directs alpha particles at a very thin sheet of gold foil. Most of the alpha particles pass through the thin foil in a straight line. State the conclusion about atoms from this observation. So this tells us that most of the atom is empty space. Some of the alpha particles are deflected through angles less than 90 degrees and a few are deflected through 180 degrees. State and explain two conclusions about the nuclei of atoms from this observation. So some are deflected through 180 degrees. So that means that they have a great deflection. So this tells us that the nucleus is very small and concentrated at the center of the atom, and some particles, when they do collide with the nucleus, they deflect through almost 180 degrees. because the repulsive force between the alpha particle and nucleus is large. So nucleus and the other conclusion is that the nucleus is small. Most alpha particles do not interact with the nucleus, do not pass close to the nucleus. Part B. A source contains a radioactive isotope of strontium. This isotope decays by emission of beta particles. The half-life of this isotope is 29 years. State the change in the nucleus which occurs when the beta particle is emitted. So a beta particle is of this nature. So we can see that a neutron is replaced by a proton. The initial mass of this isotope of strontium in the source is 25 micrograms. Calculate the mass of the strontium isotope that decays in 87 years. So the half-life is 29 years, so 87 years means 3 half-life. So after the first half-life, this would become 12.5. After the second half-life, this would become 6.25, and after the third half-life this would become 3.125. So they are asking us for the mass of the strontium isotope that decays. So this is the mass remaining after 3 half-lives. So how much has decayed? 25 minus 3.125. So this gives us rounded off to 22 micrograms. Question 10. Figure 10.1 represents different positions A till H of the moon as it rotates around the earth. State of position of the moon when observer on earth sees a quarter moon. Okay, so light is coming from this direction. So a quarter moon will be seen when at these positions, when only half of the moon receives the light. So at positions A and E. And the full moon you will see when it's at this position, at G, where it will receive all of the light. State the approximate time taken for the moon to orbit the earth. So we know that the moon takes approximately 1 month. The average distance of the earth from the sun is 1.5 into 10 to the power 8 kilometers. Calculate the average orbital speed. So the average orbital speed is given by 2 pi r over t, where r is the radius of the orbit and t is the time taken for that particular orbit. So we have 2 pi r will be 1.5 to the power 8, and time, so they're asking the speed in kilometers per hour, so time will be in hours. So we know that the earth takes 1 year, so there are 365.24 hours in a year. So just put this in the calculator and you will get an approximate answer of 110,000 kilometers per hour. The speed of light in a vacuum is this much. Calculate the time taken for light from the sun to reach the earth. So here we'll use the formula speed is equals to distance over time. The speed we are given, distance we know is this value, and time we have to calculate. So just plug this in your calculator and you will get your answer as 500 seconds. The last question, state the condition required for a protostar to become a stable star. So this happens when the inward force attraction is balanced by an outward force due to high temperature. Define the Hubble constant. So we know the formula is V is equal to H naught D. So when you can manipulate this formula and you can convert this into 1 over H naught. This would be V over D is equal to H naught. So this expression here tells us that the Hubble constant is the ratio of the speed of galaxy over the distance. The current estimate of Hubble constant is this value. State the equation which gives an estimate for the age of the universe. So T over V is equals to 1 over H naught. State the equation which gives an estimate for the age of the universe. So we know that D over V is basically time. So this is the equation, and the next part they basically ask us to use this equation to find the estimate. So T is equal to 1 over H naught, and H naught is this value. So just plug this in the calculator and your answer will come out to be 4.54 10 to the power 17. So this brings us to the end of our paper. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you later.